Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the content patch for the 17th of January 2013. My name is TotalBiscuit with your daily gaming news and comment. Coming up on the show, US President Obama proposes CDC study into media violence, including violent video games. AMD employees accused of industrial espionage. The Writers Guild of America announces their nominations for the Outstanding Achievement in Video Game Writing Award. Bethesda registers trademark for potential apocalyptic television program, and Team Fortress 2 will receive VR headset port, with details coming at GDC this year. Just a few days after Vice President Joe Biden's recommendation to Barack Obama as regards to measures to take in order to curb gun violence, it would appear that President Obama has decided to propose a CDC study on media violence, which involves a $10 million investment into the researches of the causes of gun violence, which includes violent media and video games. From a political standpoint, this is a fairly interesting move because the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, has since the 1990s been forbidden from advocating or researching gun control in any real respect. So the order to research the causes of gun violence is kind of a sideways attack at that, I suppose, though it isn't a direct contradiction. The ESA, the Entertainment Software Association, did have something to say on this, stating, "We concur with President Obama's call today for all Americans to do their part and agree with the report's conclusion that the entertainment and video game industries have a responsibility to give parents tools and choices about the movies and programs their children watch and the games their children play." They added to this, the same entertainment is enjoyed across all cultures and nations, but tragic levels of gun violence remain unique to our country, that being the USA. Scientific research and international and domestic crime data all point towards the same conclusion: entertainment does not cause violent behavior in the real world. So my immediate reaction to this is, oh great, they're throwing more money at something we already know, that video games don't actually have any real influence on the behavior of a person, especially when it comes down to mass murder. There are many studies already out there that say this, and this has been looked at time and again and again. So my immediate reaction is, for God's sake, why are we wasting money on this? Why aren't we actually looking at the root causes of the problem? Where's the research into the way that mental health is handled in this country? That does seem it would be just a tad more constructive, don't you think? There's one factor which seems to be present in all of these cases, and that is the perpetrator was mentally unstable. So that's the only thing that correlates. Can we look at that, maybe? That sounds like a good idea, but it's difficult to go into this discussion without getting overly political. It's certainly something that I don't want to do on this channel. You come here for video games, not politics. But what I would say, at least from an objective perspective, is there are a couple of possible benefits to this research. Firstly, the fact that it is research into the connection between media and real-life violence. It is not necessarily video games, although video games are of course included in this. My hope is that the research is able to go into looking at the links between 24/7 cable news coverage and the way that they handle these disasters, and also the way that that affects copycat killings and raising the profile of the killer almost to the level of being a renowned anti-hero. This is something that I made an argument about, and I'm not the only one to do it. Several psychologists have gone on record to claim that this is the case. If you need more information on that, I provided sources in my tragedy and video game violence video a couple of weeks back. But I'm hoping that that is something they can focus on. The second thing that could be positive about this is that if this study were to come back and say, yeah, we found no link whatsoever, then that's something fresh in the mind of people that are trying to argue for censorship of video games and just violent media in general. Those are the two potential positive outcomes from this. It's not like this hasn't been researched before. And if it hadn't been researched before, I would be more than willing to say, you go and have a look at this. You know, this is something that we all need to be concerned about as gamers. Is there some kind of effect? The thing is that it has been researched before, time after time after time. We've always come to the same conclusion. The most extreme result from any of the legitimate studies is a possible link between an increase in aggression immediately after playing violent video games, and that, of course, being focused on kids. The problem with the study, of course, is that it highlights aggression rather than actual violent thoughts and behavior. Now, aggression is something that is generally stimulated by a competitive activity. There's a reason why sports players are generally so aggressive in a team competitive environment. Sports increase aggression. Like, that is a fact. There is no real question about that. Competitive violent video games also increase aggression. Of course they do, because again, they're competitive. These are also the kind of things that trigger the survival instinct, which in turn also triggers aggression. That's how we work as human beings. Anything competitive that you are involved in can do that. And that doesn't necessarily mean that it correlates to increased violence. It certainly doesn't mean that someone wants to go and shoot somebody. I talked a couple of days ago about the desensitization argument, and my conclusion is that you become desensitized to fantasy violence, not desensitized to real violence. There is absolutely no causal link there whatsoever, and in fact there are many studies which say the exact opposite. But at the end of the day, it's not like we can really do anything about this. This is actually an executive action, so we don't have any control over it whatsoever. And at least if some money does go into this, then hopefully it can come back with the conclusion that, no, this is all BS, and maybe we can move past that onto what the real problems actually are. AMD employees have been accused of industrial espionage in the form of leaking confidential documents from AMD, as well as soliciting AMD employees to join rival Nvidia. One of the men accused goes by the name of Robert Feldstein. Now, this man's job was to secure deals between console makers and AMD, and that is exactly what he did. He set up deals for the Xbox 360 and the Wii U, and it is also believed that he was involved in negotiations for next-generation Microsoft and Sony technology for the PS4 and Xbox 720. The two other men alleged to be involved in this espionage include Manu Desai and Nicholas Kosiek, and they supposedly transferred sensitive AMD documents, and over the course of 6 months, violated no solicitation of employees' promises, and all committed obvious violations of common law, statute, and or contracts with AMD, it is claimed in documents and charges acquired by Ars Technica. There's not really a huge conclusion to be made on this, honestly. Is espionage good or bad? Well, no one's going to argue that it's good, come on. But what it definitely isn't good for is the PC scene. Of course, AMD and Nvidia are large players, indeed the only real players currently in PC gaming graphics technology, and as a direct result, any accusations of espionage and corruption can, of course, only harm the industry as a whole. So this news overall sucks, is my expert conclusion. The Writers Guild of America has announced their shortlist for the Outstanding Achievement in Video Game Writing Award. Unfortunately, the list is rather suspect. Are you prepared for a laugh? Let's see. So here is the set of nominations, folks. It starts with 007 Legends. What? It's followed by Assassin's Creed 3. The other Assassin's Creed 3 game, that being Liberation, the Vita exclusive, Disney's Epic Mickey 2 The Power of 2, Halo 4, and Uncharted Golden Abyss. Now, you're probably scratching your head at this, like, right, where's The Walking Dead? Where is Spec Ops? Where's Mass Effect? What's up with this? This is absurd, right? Well, the problem is the award is bunk. That's being kind to it. In reality, it's bollocks. The reason it's bollocks is that the only people that are allowed to actually be nominated are credited video game writers that must have been or have applied to become members of the Writers Guild of America Video Game Writers Caucus at the time scripts were submitted. Since, quite frankly, there is almost no reason to do that, it is entirely understandable that the list would pretty much only consist of the people that actually did sign up for that. And there aren't really all that many that have. This also pretty much excludes any international writer, so the lack of inclusion of Spec Ops is not exactly surprising, but it is safe to say that the WGAs, when it comes to the Outstanding Achievement in Video Game Writing Award, is little more than a circle jerk, and is of absolutely no use whatsoever to gamers in general. It also does not encourage good writing, as you can very clearly see by the fact that 007 Legends was in the bloody list. Epic Mickey 2 is hardly deserving of an award in that respect, and putting both Assassin's Creed games in really makes me scratch my head in a very, very real way. And it wouldn't really surprise me if Halo 4 or maybe the Uncharted games got a nod every now and again, because they're not exactly badly written, but considering we had a really good year when it came to story-driven games, this list is nothing short of crap. There are rumors on the internet about a Fallout television program, and the reason is that Bethesda registered a trademark with the USPTO as regards to an ongoing television program set in a post-nuclear apocalyptic world. That does sound rather Fallout-y, I have to say. As far as I'm aware, Bethesda doesn't own any other properties that would match up to that particular description, and the speculation has been fueled somewhat by voice actor Eric Todd Dellums, also known as Three Dog, the radio announcer in Fallout 3, tweeting that there will be more of the dog coming, and that he was given permission to release that tease. So it would appear that something is on the way, whether it be Fallout 4, whether it be a Fallout television program. I think if I'm going to put out a little bit of a speculation, I would imagine that it's most likely Fallout 4 with a promotional mini-series, perhaps along the lines of Halo Forward Unto Dawn. That's what it sounds like to me. And it wouldn't surprise me at all. I find it very unlikely that Bethesda is intending to release a full television show of anything, but these mini web series with fairly high production values that sometimes also air on the Sci-Fi Channel and things like that. Now, that, on the other hand, might actually be viable and feasible, so it wouldn't surprise me at all to see that coming, and it would also be kind of great, except for the fact that I find it unlikely that they would be able to properly represent the subject matter in a mature fashion. And that's unfortunate, really, isn't it? Because what I really like about Fallout, or at least what I liked about the first few games, and to a lesser extent Fallout 3, but I feel that New Vegas did it a little bit better than Fallout 3, is the fact that it dealt with fairly mature subject matter and that the world really pulled no punches most of the time. It was a very violent, very unpleasant world to live in, although it still had this rather odd 50s Americana vibe surrounding it. So hopefully this will turn out well, but it would not surprise me at all if any series they did do ended up being completely neutered if they were aiming to put it on TV. And finally, it's announced that there will be a panel at GDC focusing on Valve's interaction with virtual reality, in particular, a virtual reality port of Team Fortress 2. Valve programmer Joe Ludwig is going to be discussing certain details and challenges, such as what stereo support entails, rendering 2D user interface in a 90-degree field of view display, and dealing with view models and other rendering shortcuts, as well as how mouse look can interact with head tracking in a first-person shooter. This, to me, is one of the most interesting things, and it's not because I'm really intrigued by TF2, it's the notion that no one's really talking about all of those challenges yet. VR and the Oculus Rift is a pretty exciting piece of tech, right? It's a piece of technology that can potentially enhance gaming without ruining gaming. And there's been so many pieces of technology come along, like motion controls and things like that, that don't really enhance gaming at all, and more often than not actually promote bad development practices. Now, I've got to admit, I'm pretty excited for VR and the potential of it. It lets me hopefully play the games that I enjoy, but have a more immersive experience. That's a cool thing, right? How could that not be a cool thing? That sounds like a fairly awesome idea. It's also got some pretty interesting possibilities when it comes to portability. And if you think about it for a second, one of the biggest problems with gaming laptops is you can't really cart your really awesome monitors around with you, so you're limited by the display. If I can take a gaming laptop with an Oculus Rift on the road with me and I take it to a hotel, I can game just as well as I can at home. That seems like a pretty awesome thing. However, there are a bunch of technical problems surrounding it. It's not just a case of shoving the game into your eyes. It's like, oh, this is VR. It's not. I mean, it really, really isn't. What about 2D user interfaces? You know, our eyes are not big squares, yeah? We don't see in 2D. There are issues with the way that things curve in our peripheral vision. That's stuff that has to be adapted to. And if we can't do that, then VR's never actually going to be as immersive. And as he points out, mouse look, big issue, because that means that if you're relying entirely on head tracking, then the chances are that you're going to be terrible at any competitive FPS. You're going to be really bad at it, because mouse look allows you to move very quickly, and you don't want to be jerking your head around so much. And what about if you need to spin around very quickly? What's the best way of doing that? So there's all sorts of technical challenges that go beyond simply being able to actually display this stuff close to your eyes and make it seem very immersive. So the fact that Valve is tackling this already and already has figured out that this is going to be a problem is a huge deal to me, because it's a big step forward in making VR a completely viable way for core gamers to actually participate in the games that they like. So VR excites me greatly, especially in this form. I'm loving the look of the Oculus Rift. I am very excited about its potential, and quite frankly, I want to try it out. I want to get my hands on it. So here's hoping that it happens to be at PAX East, and I can maybe set up an appointment, and then I can tell you guys exactly what I think of it. Because it looks great, but I suppose the proof of the pudding is very much in the eating. There's no real way to explain it or just show it to a mass audience without just putting it on your head and seeing it for yourself. Okay, folks, that is me done for the day. Thank you very much for watching the content patch, and I will see you next time.